The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good day, everyone. Thank you for viewing this pre-recorded version of our webinar. For me, the start of 2020 will be marked by an increase in my vocabulary. I have worked in healthcare for many years. However, many of the phrases you see on the screen were novel to me. They are now firmly part of my daily lexicon. My name is Nick. I joined Visser at the start of summer 2018, having spent time on either side of the built environment industry, working both in construction and latterly as an FM, both as an outsourced provider and on in-house teams. I now head up our FM consultancy services at Visser. For those that don't know, the Building Services Research and Information Association tests, researches and offers industry guidance, training and consultation on pretty much everything in the built environment. As an association, we are member-based, and our members have been asking us a great number of questions about the planned preventative side of maintenance. There has been a particular focus on how they are to manage the impacts caused by this pandemic. This webinar is in response to that, and as such, the several sessions that we held on this one topic are informing us where we can best assist our membership and the wider industry. For that reason, whilst I'm talking, albeit that this is not live, I encourage you to send me your questions, comments and concerns through our website or to the email address I post at the end of this recording. You can see on the screen now the dates and times of the mirror sessions we held, so that should give you an idea of the time that this information was valid. And as ever, I encourage you to share links to this recording if you think your colleagues or industry contacts would benefit from hearing and seeing what we offer. We'll be following a very simple agenda. It's only 2 items. We will have a look at the existing advice and guidance, and then look to what you can be doing in your buildings. So please, for those that have not already done so, start thinking about your questions, open a blank email in another window, start typing them down, or just sit back and listen to me for a few minutes. Let us start at the top. The .gov.uk website has stated that making buildings safe remains a priority for the government. The reference web page does talk about ACMs or aluminium composite materials, presumably referencing Grenfell and the fire issues, as well as other construction-related issues as a priority. Similarly, there is a link to the letter or a letter from the Secretary of State for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, Mr. Alok Sharma, to the UK construction sector, thanking us for keeping things ticking over on building sites at this time. Moving on to something a little more specific to us and the maintenance of existing buildings, the Crown Commercial Services site, or CCS site, guides those looking at needing to or having already undertaken a full or partial shutdown of their buildings. Evidently, their guidance is focused on the public sector. However, the information contained within can be adapted to be applied to the private sector. The last of the .gov.uk sites up there is the Health and Safety Executive. I'm going to discuss them on the next 2 slides. Initial communications from the HSE or HSA in the Republic of Ireland were in line with business as usual. There was acknowledgement that there will be challenges in meeting the time-related statutory inspections. However, they reiterated that the duty holder has a legal responsibility to maintain work equipment and carry out thorough examinations, written schemes of examination, and statutory inspections. As we all know, they implement these legal duties to help manage the significant hazards that the failure of such equipment can pose to workers, building occupiers, and members of the public. The HSE also stated that it's up to firms and their clients to agree what is critical work in the light of the government guidance and to decide whether this can be undertaken in a manner consistent with PHE, or Public Health England's guidance. Last month, there was also the statement from the HSE that most premises have more than one lift, so some redundancy is already built in. There was no acknowledgement that most multi-lift sites have their assets inspected on the same day or week, depending on how many lifts there are on the site, so this redundancy is more related to failures than inspections. More recently, the HSE have issued a guidance note for duty holders and inspectors regarding lifting operations and lifting equipment regulations, or LOLA, as well as pressure systems safety regulations, or PSSR. This guidance note does reiterate that the HSE are not in any way lifting the requirements to conduct thorough examination and testing, what they are calling TE&T. But they are making some concessions. They have acknowledged that there may be difficulties in completing TE&T, and they have gone as far as to identify 4 of the main issues that we've been hearing about. Reduced availability of engineers to complete TE&T due to sickness, absence, or self-isolation as a direct result of COVID-19. Owners of plant and equipment, duty holders, refusing access to premises for TE&T as they feel unable to accommodate visiting engineers while maintaining social distancing in the workplace. Refusal of engineers to enter a duty holder's premises to carry out TE&T due to concerns over social distancing arrangements being less than adequate, and plant and equipment being unavailable for TE&T if a workplace or site is closed due to COVID-19 social distancing restrictions. We're hearing a 5th reason, which is the HSE may be grouping into the overarching total of social distancing arrangements. But we are being told that the lack of PPE being available or provided is being cited by engineers as a reason not to enter certain higher risk premises. The HSE is advocating that duty holders must make all reasonable efforts to arrange for thorough examination and testing, and that will include ensuring inspection bodies have access to equipment in a timely manner, working with the inspection body to manage appropriate social distancing in the workplace, considering allowing access to vacated premises if the staff are furloughed and the building is not operating, so as to ensure a swift restart once the business is allowed to reopen, and to make reasonable attempts to source engineers from other providers if the business's primary provider is unable to provide engineers. The HSE has also issued guidance to the inspection bodies to work with their clients on social distancing arrangements, to try to access businesses that are not currently operating, and to consider prioritisation if staff availability is an issue. 4 pages into the 10-page document, there is a section regarding what to do if a thorough examination and test cannot be undertaken. It details that if all reasonable efforts have been made, there can be an element of pragmatism applied. This approach must be tempered with competent advice, however. They don't want building owners having free rein to bypass checks, but the inspection bodies they're asking to, or similar competent advisor, they're asking that they should be involved. It is very clear that the statutory obligation to ensure that plant and equipment is safe to use should be the primary consideration. The last point I want to cover with you on the HSE is that if you can show that all possible actions have been taken and the equipment is safe and that the only failing is an out-of-date T&T due to COVID-19, they are going to consider that no enforcement action is required. They do advocate that every step must be documented. That is the world that we're in now. I used to tell my teams that once upon a time, doing a job was the most important thing, but now that is second to documenting it. If any risk is perceived, it should be documented, and all actions taken to mitigate that risk should be recorded on the risk register. This is certainly in line with the advice we have been giving our members. A quick note on the last government department that we're going to mention in this presentation, and that is to say that Defra have also indicated that they will be following a pragmatic approach. They have indicated that in some rare instances, they may allow currently prohibited practices to be permitted. It is, however, clear that in all instances, they should be consulted before taking any action. Where else can you go? Our friends at the Institute of Workplace and Facility Management, or BIFM, as many of you may still refer to them, are also supporting us with guidance and forms of interaction. They have completed the second of their fortnightly webinars, and these are set to continue. They have also set up a dedicated web page on some of the issues faced by FMs during this coronavirus pandemic. And this web page links to various topics and to IWFM guidance on risk management, agile working, change management, and business continuity. Well worth looking into. The Building Engineering Services Association have also set up a dedicated web page, replete with links and downloads. One of the most interesting that they have is the SFG 30 publication. I've not added an address as their website asks you to contact them directly for this, but the publication is about decommissioning or mothballing and then recommissioning or reoccupying buildings. They've made this available for free to their members and are offering it at a discounted rate to SFG 20 subscribers and non-members. And we're helping out too. We are being contacted for advice on the maintenance of buildings, not just because of our company values of being independent and authoritative, but because we are very well known for our business-focused maintenance approach. If you're not familiar with BFM, I would be more than happy to take questions on that, as well as other things. But in a nutshell, it is a way of adapting your PPM routine to focus on your business's main activities, whatever stage they might be at, and ensuring that the installed building services are able to support them. Our website, online training options, and resident experts are on hand for practical advice regarding some of the activities that you should be considering at this time. And some of those things would be looking at what you can do in your building. One of the biggest issues, perhaps not so much during the pandemic, but after it, when we all return to the buildings that have been sitting idle, is water. Everyone, or nearly everyone, is aware of the potential for bacteriological proliferation in non-maintained systems. And on the screen, you can see a link to one of our articles on the subject. Essentially, you are looking at either altering the system somehow or increasing PPMs such as flushing. As mentioned, the Visser guide, SFG 30, has great guidance on mothballing or decommissioning buildings, so we will focus on the PPM side. If the building is not being used, then every outlet becomes a little used outlet and therefore should be flushed weekly. If the building is warm, and this may be the case with rising temperatures as we move into May, this weekly flush may be needing to be increased, to a twice weekly flush. Overall, the rules should be the same, ensuring cold water is kept cold, i.e. below 20, and that's centigrade for any of our imperial friends listening to this. And the hot water should be kept hot or above 55 degrees centigrade or even 60 degrees centigrade depending on your building type, and that is on the return side. For buildings that are operating, cooling systems should be kept running, and there is a growing body of investigations, and note I did not use the word evidence, that is suggesting that temperatures of 24 degrees centigrade and above and over 50% relative humidity is helpful in mitigating or controlling the lifespan of the COVID-19 causing coronavirus. However, I have seen documentation from the Federation of European Heating, Ventilation and Air Conditioning Associations that does not support this and suggests that the figures are closer to 30 degrees centigrade and approximately 80% relative humidity, which would not be convenient in a building. If you are vacating the building, then the cooling towers can be drained and local authorities notified. Heating is the same. We should be keeping things running. It is the time of year when we would be considering standing down our heating systems, and those activities could be pulled forward, ensuring inhibitors are topped up to keep the pipe condition and biological content within desired parameters. Ventilation, it's a big one. There is so much discussion at this time about transmission methods. Is it fomite and droplet only, or is it airborne? There are talks about UV treatment of ventilation, HEPA room cleaners, and whether in the near future these sort of technologies will be the norm. What we do know from all the advice that we are reading and hearing is that there appears to be a golden thread unifying all responses, and that is that the best thing you can do for your building is keep the fresh or outdoor air coming in. Increasing the ventilation appears to be the best solution. Where possible, creating negative pressures in the toilet areas and flushing with the lids down, and flooding all other areas with as much fresh, non-recirculated air as possible, and similarly increasing extract volumes is repeatedly stated as the best thing we can do with our ventilation systems. This may entail manually intervening to fully open dampers, close recirculation paths, and consider running close to maximum airflow volumes for up to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for any level of occupancy within a building. Life safety systems will need to continue to be looked at, even if buildings are at a low occupancy, as one accident is too many, especially if they're avoidable. We can give guidance on where to go for the best advice on any of these systems. If buildings are being mothballed, one consideration that will need to be made is contacting insurers to understand their coverage requirements. As we saw earlier, systems that fall into the LOLA or PSSR categories will have their own considerations as governed by the HSE. Emergency lighting checks in an unoccupied building can be halted and then conducted prior to reoccupation. In an occupied building, the advice changes. We were contacted by a facilities manager with approximately 2,500 emergency lights and a seriously reduced staff size. We worked with this FM to identify where some time saving could be made. We identified the issue with him, helped get the risk documented, and discussed mitigation options to ensure that the risk was minimised to an acceptable level. I believe I've mentioned once already that the documentation process is key in all changes to regular practices. I've come across a number of situations where documentation of risk and continual review until the risk has been removed or returned to a normal level has mitigated any enforcement action. Generators are a great one. They do need to be run regularly like any engine, pump, but now would be an ideal time for any load bank testing in shutdown sites. Conversely, there will be some sites that are considerably more active, and they may need to consider hiring in generators to take their installed generators offline for testing. I mentioned earlier in this presentation about business-focused maintenance. The guide for BFM is on the left-hand side of the screen. An element of the BFM process is a condition survey. We have issued guidance on this too. If you are returning to buildings and are worried about the state of the kit after its period of inactivity, a great way of ascertaining the condition of the assets is to have an independent review of the building services plant. Our BG35 2012 guide runs through our guidance to the industry on how we conduct these inspections. And of course, if you would like any more detail on these or any of our services, please get in contact either via the question feature or by using contact details at the end of this presentation. Question feature or posting on the website. Good news, we're nearly done. So to quickly recap, I have reviewed some of the existing government guidance. We've seen what association support there is, and we've talked about some of the activities that you should be considering in your buildings at this time and before they become reoccupied. So I think we've heard enough from me. So to close, I would like to remind you that we are looking to hear from you. What are you doing on your sites? What problems have you faced? How are you mitigating or managing them? And how can we help? Thank you. Be safe, and please get in touch if we can support you with any of your building services, FM, or built environment issues.